Evening, Craig Schlitter with Navigate Building Solutions. I'll be providing the Brentwood Bound update. So starting with construction costs, total spent since the last Board of Aldermen meeting was $365,845. There were numerous soft costs that totaled $54,819.78. Those were material testing, design, project management, IT, and legal fees. And then in the categories of funding, two updates. So Eric Grunfelder and team successfully achieved the grant from MML for the playground. So that payment was received. That was $370,000 for the associated playground equipment that recently has been installed. So that's great news to actually receive that check. And then as we talked about at a previous meeting, there needs to be a transfer of funds for additional funds for the project. And that's the amount that was presented, $1,086,010. So that has been brought over, and that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up is the Brentwood Bound Quarterly Report by Kerbeck and Breckel. Do we have somebody here?
We have Julia's online.
The Julia Moore?
Yes.
All right, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. We were engaged to perform the procedures over the agreed upon procedures relating to the expenditures of the certificate of participation proceeds. This is over the third quarter of 2023. There were no costs submitted for the Series 2018 expenditures. There were some with the Series 2019. And we did have some findings when we were going through our procedures. So the first was that there were 5 exceptions noted in our testing in which the appropriate capital forms were not completed prior to the disbursement. And so these capital forms are required for any expenditures over $2,500. But all other invoices were properly approved, as well as the check request forms, and all other policies and procedures were followed. There was one exception noted in which a $457 disbursement to SEI Engineering was not placed on the warrant list before it was approved by the Board of Aldermen. But again, all other city policies and internal controls were followed. Everything was properly approved for that one. There were some capital forms that were not properly approved. There was an invoice with SEI Engineering, 2 invoices from Navigate Building Solutions, and another invoice from SWT Design that were not signed by the city administrator, but they and the department director, but they were signed by the finance director. There was a capital form from Sincera Systems that was signed by the department director, but did not indicate approval from finance director or the city administrator. And then there was a capital form invoice from L. Keeley Construction, an invoice from Ideal Landscape Construction, and 2 other invoices from Plocher Construction Co. that were signed by the department director and finance director, but did not show any approval by the city administrator. We did notice a few checks that were incorrectly issued. There was one check related to Armstrong Teasdale for an invoice totaling $3,116. And this check was overstated by $50, so it was incorrectly issued for $3,166. There was another check written to Curtis Hines, Garrett, and O'Keefe. That was an invoice for $2,575. The warrant list had it understated by $912. So the check was incorrectly issued in the amount of $1,663. And then there was another exception noted for a payment to Navigate Building Solutions for an invoice totaling $36,062.76. And again, this was also understated on the warrant list by $6,000. So the check was issued, but the check was issued in the correct amount. It was just understated on the warrant list. And then the last exception that we noted during our testing procedures was related to a payment to SCI Engineering. This was for an invoice of $457, and reviewing the UMB information, it was paid out twice. So it was included in one check with other invoices to this company. And then it was also paid individually on a different check about a month later. But other than that, all the other procedures were in place and properly followed for all of their expenditures.
Okay. We have any questions?
So I have two questions. So the first question is, what assurance do we have that proper payments are going to be going on, I guess really one question, going forward? Because we're now at the point where we're out of the COP
AT.
money. And so there are internal procedures. So how are we, as the board, going to be assured that the additional $20 million that is going to be spent on this project is going to be sort of done properly and without the exceptions noted in this by the auditor?
I know that I was working, oh, sorry.
Hi, Michelle Depew. I can speak to the process. The process to have the 2019 certificates of participation paid actually fell outside of the normal accounts payable procedures. So, and then to give the oversight of that, a lot of these approvals were done via email. I did write a memo attached to this audit procedures that I sort of inherited, not realizing that these items were in place. A lot of the approvals actually happened via email, not having a lot of knowledge about the project itself or to feel that I could necessarily give approval over it. All of the information was sent via email to the city administrator, a representative to navigate, a public works director, and our park and rec director. So the approvals of not signing those documents, actually I felt superseded by sending the emails and asking for their review and their help in with the process. How do we stop this from happening? These particular items in general, it actually runs through accounts payable where that sits in that office and it's my oversight on that. We actually have procedures in place where I am signing everything and she's actually doing the process. This particular process was a 4-step process to 4 different potential entities, and none of the forms were the same. It left a lot of room for error in my office. Running through accounts payable and following those designated processes does not leave a lot of room for error. So I feel really comfortable moving forward. I didn't necessarily understand what I had inherited, what she was looking for. I do feel we had the approvals intact. Once again, I was looking for verification from people who had any of the miskeying errors, UMB would call me directly. I would give authorization. We would walk through that. Once again, I didn't know what I inherited until suddenly there was an audit of situations. She is correct in her findings, but once again, I do believe we had other items in place that sort of helped supersede some of this approval. Thank you.
You have another question, or is that it? Okay, and the amounts that were overpaid, like the 2 checks or the one that was to Armstrong Teasdale, have we received refunds on that, or?
The SCI one, we actually did a stop payment on one of theirs. They had about 45 days where they never received the check. I have emails between me and UMB in which we went back and forth and decided to do a stop payment and then the reissuance of some of those dollars. So there are procedures and items in place in which we made sure of that. So I worked directly with SCI to figure out what were they missing, how were they missing it, how many days. Normally my internal protocol is we wait at least 30 days, but with mail and Christmas and everything else, trying to figure out what could have happened to those checks. So yes, there has been some reconciling with UMB and these other parties to help with those. Either they weren't overpayments. We did stop payments on some of those, so we didn't.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Thanks, Michelle. Thank you, Julie. And I think we are done then with your report, unless you have anything else.
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll bring us down to the consent agenda, under which we have 4 items. Are there any questions or any requests to remove any of these items from the consent agenda? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice? Yes. Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes. Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder. Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8-0.
Great. That brings us down to old business. First up is Bill number 6484. Can we get a second read by title only, please?
Bill number 6484, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance repealing ordinance numbers 2725, 3132, and 3398, and authorizing a new conditional use permit and site development plan for an adult daycare facility and group home at 9445 Litzinger Road for Larch, St. Louis.
Great. Can we get a motion to perfect Bill number 6484 in ordinance form?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice,
Yes.
Alderman Weggie,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller, Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder. Okay, recused, okay. Alderman Erger.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0 to 1 recused, Bill number 6484 will become ordinance number 5111.
Thank you. That brings us down to the second item under old business, and that's Bill number 6485. Could we get a second read by title only, please?
Bill number 6485, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending the Brentwood Property Maintenance Code pertaining to the obligation to maintain vegetation within adjacent rights-of-way.
Okay, can we get a motion to perfect Bill number 6485 in the ordinance form? Okay, any discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderman Gould, Alderwoman Sims, sorry.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder,
Yes.
Alderman Erger. By a vote of 8-0, Bill number 6485 will become ordinance number 5112.
Great, thank you. Brings us down to new business, under which we have two items, and they both are related. And just a little background for the board and for the public. As you know, going back to last year, if not back to the year of 2022, there have been efforts down in the legislature in Jefferson City to restrict our revenue moving forward, specifically sales tax on groceries. And I see that as a tremendous threat, not just to the citizens of Brentwood, but to all the municipalities, but to the extent that if passed, it would greatly affect our residents in terms of what services are provided to them with policing and fire protection and infrastructure, as well as the concern that we would have that we have debt that we have to service, which relies heavily on sales tax. And to the extent there be any decrease in the sales tax revenue as a result of actions in the legislature, all those things would greatly impact the residents of Brentwood. And as a result, I've been working on trying to find ways to deal with that. And what I have done is I have met with some groups, we'll call them lobbying groups, to help us in this effort, to navigate the process down in Jefferson City and to advise us on the status of how things are going, to help us try to ensure that those efforts are not successful. And so what we have here in front of you are two resolutions. And I have met with three different entities. And the first one which is resolution number 1485. This is a group that is involved with the city of Crestwood already. And so I met with the mayor of Crestwood and the mayors of Manchester and De Pere to see about joining in efforts to help fund that effort, that lobbying group. And so that's what 1485 is. The second one, 1486, would be for us to retain Gamble and Schlemeyer, specifically Jorgen Schlemeyer, who Alderwoman Tice has worked with in the past. And this would be one that we retain ourselves. And the benefit of having these entities, one of the many benefits is that we're getting information from them. So if we retain Gamble and Schlemeyer, obviously they will report to us what's going on in terms of efforts down in Jeff City, what bills are advancing, what we could do to maybe try and slow that down. The reason to go forward with the one with Crestwood is it's another source of information, because unless we go in on that one, we're not going to get any information from that group. And my thought was the amount of money that Crestwood is asking to pay for that is fairly a nominal amount of money. I mean, it's $4,000. But again, by paying the $4,000, we're going to have access to this additional information from a different source and from a different way of trying to address this. So I've brought to you both these resolutions for consideration. So the first up is the resolution number 1485. And can I get a motion to approve 1485?
I'll move.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on that? Yes.
So I just want to comment on both of these resolutions. Having worked, I worked in government relations for 11 years, and as sort of unsavory as the word lobbyist is, that's how stuff gets done in Jefferson City. And this is $4.3 million. The sales tax on groceries in Brentwood is $4.3 million of tax revenue every year, or this was the guess last year, so the estimate last year. So it would be a significant hit, and I think we would be penny wise and pound foolish not to approve these two resolutions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Weggie.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? What is the difference between the two proposals?
Sure. Well, one is, I guess I would call Gamble and Schlemeyer more of a traditional lobbying firm. All they do is lobbying. The one that is retained by Crestwood, they are a campaign consulting firm primarily, as well, and then on the side they do some lobbying work. And the benefit of that is they have relationships with some of their clients are people running for office, and they're helping with the campaigns for those folks that are running for office. So it's not a traditional lobbying firm. It's more of a political consultant that has a different means of access, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does, but they're complementary then.
Yeah, complimentary. That's a good way of putting it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. I'm still confused as to why this isn't completely additive, that this isn't completely duplicative. I don't really, I know it's $4,000, but I don't really understand how, can somebody explain to me, are these two entities going to take different approaches with our legislators in terms of making the point, or is this going to be just one visit with one and then another visit that's largely identical with another? And if the latter is the case, I don't know that I want us to be spending any money other than the people we retain ourselves.
Sure. Here's my understanding is lobbying firms have relationships with existing legislators, senators, and representatives. Some lobbying firms might have a stronger relationship with particular senators. They don't have a relationship with every single one, but with certain senators and certain representatives. And that's one lobbying company. Another lobbying company also has relationships, but with different senators. So there really isn't the overlapping. So, you've got Schlemeyer's firm has a relationship, let's say 15 senators, and a good relationship. Then you've got the other group that has a relationship with 5 other senators. So now you've got 20 senators that are all working to try and slow down this effort instead of just 5, or instead of just the 15 under the Schlemeyer bid. See what I'm saying?
So yeah, Dave, and
Okay.
I understand you're speaking hypothetically, but is that I don't want, obviously we can't name the people, but is that what you're saying? Are you saying that this is greater coverage?
That is my understanding. Yes, it is greater coverage.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Alderman Gould.
Yeah, I mean, I shared, Alderman Plufka has the same questioning or concern that I have with it. What confidence do we have that it is truly greater coverage and not, we won't just find out that it's kind of the same parties that we're gonna have access to, and we get essentially the same information, and now we, yes, it's nominal to be part of this intergovernmental agreement. But,
Well, yeah, no,
if I don't know for sure it's gonna
Right,
be
right,
a greater access, I think I'd rather go with going in on our own.
right.
But.
Well, I certainly would hope the board would agree with approving the second one, the 1486, because I definitely think that's the best way to go. I do think that the 1485 is an add-on. I would encourage the board not to just go with 1485, but to do 1486 and then add on 1485. And the reason my basis for saying that it's an add-on is from my conversation with Jorgen Schliemeyer, because they know who they have the relationship with, and they know who the other firm has the relationships with. I've not gone down and compared all the senators and the representatives that Jorgen has a relationship with against the one that the Crestwood Group has a relationship with. So it's based solely upon the representation of Jorgen.
And did Jorgen suggest that doing the other add-on was a good move? I mean,
I don't think I asked.
recommended?
I don't think I asked him. I did not. I don't think I got his opinion on that one way. I did not. Yeah. Alderwoman Tice.
So I have two questions. The first question is, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask it publicly. Will the Crestwood group be hired whether we're in or not?
Yes, they're going forward with this group regardless.
So are we doing this to be a good citizen and a good neighbor and have municipalities work together? Or do we believe that we're actually going to get different information?
It's twofold. My belief is that, number one, we are being a good citizen, but what's really driving this would be the idea that we would get, it's a different source of information, because we'd be hearing it from a different lobbying group instead of our own, and they can keep us up to date and say, here's what the representatives and senators that we have a relationship with are telling us, versus Schliemeyer's group. Yes, Alderman Plufka.
How many other communities are in that Crestwood group?
I think, not including us, it's 4. I think it's Richmond Heights, Manchester, Crestwood, and De Pere.
We don't know of any other
No,
community groups that have gathered together.
No, since I have met with those mayors, Richmond Heights has joined in.
With Crestwood.
I'm sorry? Yeah, in the Crestwood group,
with the
right.
Crestwood, okay.
And I've not reached out to other mayors yet to see if they want to join in with ours, and I don't think that I should do that without, first of all, getting this in place, and then secondly, getting that authorization from the board, because again, then, we're sharing this information with other municipalities.
Okay. And you had said, and audio kind of cut in and out a little bit for me anyway.
Sure.
When Alderwoman Tice was asking her question about whether or not the Crestwood effort is going forward with or without us, the answer was yes.
It is. It absolutely is.
Okay.
There's no question. Mayor Shipley told me even if nobody wants to share the cost of it, they're bearing the cost of going forward with this. And again, the reason to do this is it gives us information that we would be getting from that group. That's really, right. In my mind, that's the main benefit of doing this. Alderwoman Harder, is your mic on?
No, I just wanted to know if other municipalities would join in.
With us?
With us, with.
It's possible, but again, like I said, I would want to get that approval from this board before I reached out to other municipalities.
Not limiting it to this 4. I mean, like Ladue could join in.
Oh, right. You mean with Crestwood?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, others could join in, but I would imagine, here's the thing, things are moving really fast. One group that I met with said, we need to get something in place immediately, because these bills are being sent out to the committees right now. And that's one of the times we have an opportunity to slow things down, is at the committee level. And so I don't know that there's going to be really any effort to get anybody else to join in with that Crestwood group, because they're like, we got to move. Alderman Gould.
So hypothetically, if we pass resolution 486, and we also pass 1486 and 1485.
Right.
Being a part of the intergovernmental relationship with Crestwood, would that obligate us to share the findings that we might have from the other
No.
that we're footing the full bill for?
Absolutely not. No, we have a relationship with nobody with that, with Gamble and Schlemeyer.
Okay.
So no, we would not be sharing.
They would not be getting a benefit of our, necessarily, by bringing that information to them as well.
No.
I mean, not that, if they wanted to join in on the cost of it, then that would
Right,
be one
right.
thing.
I mean, obviously, I don't want anybody to get a free ride on this. I don't think anybody does. Alderman Lockmuller.
Excuse me, along those lines, looking at 1486, if another municipality was interested in joining with us, are we just going to solely be involved with this lobbyist, or would we invite other municipalities?
Well, I don't have a problem reaching out to other municipalities to defray the cost on this, if the board would like me to do that. I've had some preliminary discussions with other mayors from other municipalities that rely heavily on grocery sales. And again, I can continue that discussion. Not opposed to doing that. We've got a member, we've got somebody with our, well, Michelle would like to address the board. Alderman Plufka, while Michelle's coming up, you had something?
I just, what would prevent us from revisiting resolution 1485 later in the legislative session?
I'm not sure that anything would.
Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to speak to the momentum that this is sort of gaining. The government finance officers met last Wednesday. At the MML spoke. And
Can everybody hear Michelle? Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah.
The MML spoke, and actually Pat Kelly spoke and used Brentwood as the example. So it is gaining the momentum. I know internally the government finance officers are actually running a survey about the amount of dollars and percentages that are going to lose. So the directors of finances are starting to talk heavily about this, as well as the mayors, which is sort of driving that momentum. I was surprised at the number of finance officers not aware about how timely this is and how much momentum it has. So it is rapidly sort of gaining this momentum internally. So DePere and I spoke briefly, Maplewood and I spoke briefly, but I just wanted to sort of emphasize sort of what you are saying. And like I said, Pat Kelly came up and used Brentwood as the example.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of both of these resolutions. Given the number of grocery stores that are in Brentwood alone and the degree to which we rely on that sales tax revenue, I mean, I'm
We lost you there, Alderwoman Sims.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, after you said about all the grocery stores we have. Nope, we lost you again.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Might be your
I
headphones.
started to think I think they're fully what we would have to do in the event something like this passes. I think given the amount of money to participate with the other municipalities, I'm not casual spending money, but I think that's a data point. I think that's important. It's another, and I think we need our own lobbyists. I mean, this could cripple us, and I think we need to get in front of it as soon as possible.
Yep. Alderman, I'm sorry. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. I'm against it. I have to tell you, I both lobbying efforts are going forward with or without our vote on this resolution. I expect us to vote the next resolution in, but this lobbying effort's going forward with or without our financial support. And we can always come back and between now and May 15th, revisit this question. And if they somehow need, more finances to continue to deliver the lobbying message, both lobbying messages are going to get delivered. I just don't see how this is money well spent for the city of Brentwood at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 1485. Can we get a roll call, please?
Alderman Plufka.
No.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Is that a yes?
I think it was.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. There we go.
Alderman Lockmiller. Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
By a vote of 7-1, motion carries.
Thank you. Brings us down to resolution number 1486. Did we have a read on that? I don't know if we didn't. Okay. Well, it's as we said, it's the Gamble and Schlemeyer Governmental Consultants, a resolution approving an agreement with Gamble and Schlemeyer Governmental Consultants for legislative services. Can we get a motion to approve resolution 1486?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Just
Alderman Weggie.
Just one comment. Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank you. You have worked really hard on this. I've seen you go to Jeff City repeatedly to talk to our legislatures. You've written op-eds in the Post-Dispatch. You have spent a lot of time on this, not just this election cycle, but last year. I think it's utterly ridiculous that we have to hire lobbyists, but I believe in you, and I believe what you're saying and your hard work on this, but it's just kind of absurd. But thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes, and that was well said.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8-0.
Great, thank you. Brings us down to citizen comments, item 10. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. You will be given up to 3 minutes. All we ask is that you come to the podium, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Anthony George. I live at 9137 Lawn Avenue. Alderwoman Sims said that the $4.3 million grocery tax would cripple us. Could you explain that a little bit more?
This is public comment. This isn't a question and answer session.
Okay, so I guess my comment is if $4.3 million would cripple us, why would we spend millions of dollars on a playground over budget last year? So it doesn't make sense to me, and I think if you were to imagine yourselves on a podium in front of 8,000 Brentwood residents and you said, hey, look, you guys have budgets you have to abide by, you have a certain amount of money you want to spend for your home or your family, and then you spend millions of dollars more, and then in a public hearing we hear that $4.3 million may cripple Brentwood, that's pretty concerning. So I think when you spend money, you should be very concerned about where it's going and what its use is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody online?
Hand raised.
Okay, thank you. We have a request to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, subsection 1, 2, and 12. Can we get a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder. Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8-0.